Hello, everyone. It's Donna McAdams and Megan. And tonight we're going to be working with the Artisan Curves Oval number 66. And so I know that a lot of you have probably purchased like the Artisan Curve set. And this is not a part of the set. This is a different one. And I wanted to show you what we can do with it, and some of the techniques will flow over to any of those other artisan curves, but this particular one is number 66 and it's an oval. So I'm just finishing up here putting on my stable tape because I've been playing with it on paper and hadn't actually stitched with it yet, but I sure got a lot of ideas for the on paper.
Can you give them any idea on how you know where to put stable tape on a new template? How do you figure out where?
Well, the stable tape, I always need it out to the edges for sure. And here I need it about, maybe 4 fingers apart. And so on this one, I put 6 different pieces. Now I've got some marks on here that while I was drawing, I used those. I would love to find my ruler stickers. I had them yesterday, but somehow they seem to have hidden themselves. So I've been using just some tape on there. So let's get a piece of paper or a piece of fabric and start playing with this template. Do you want to get me one over there underneath one of those piles, the black pieces? Probably need 2 of them. So let's see. I did a class earlier today and I don't have any thread in here. So let's get some thread real quick. For those of you that may be new, we start out using polyester thread. It just seems to be a little more forgiving. You can use about any kind of thread you want. Just make sure you got the right size of needle. I'm using 40 weight thread, and I'm also using a top stitch needle. So I have a 90 top stitch needle in there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing 16 lines. So I'm going to put this in the middle here, and we're going to draw 8, and then we'll rotate. To get the other 8. So I've got 8 here, and I'm simply going to rotate this so that I line up across here with a line that's a registration line that's etched in. And now I can go ahead and get those lines in. Now there is a lot that you can do with an artisan curve. I don't pretend to be able to show you nearly everything. I'm just going to show you some things. And I don't like to put the pin up through the fabric. I put the pin in a piece of my tape here. The sticky side is right here. And I'm going to just tape that right in the center. And then an artisan ruler has a shape up here, and then it has holes depending on what you want to do. I'm going to put this in the 11.5 right now, and I'm going to go between those 2 lines. Now, I could have drawn that in between there, but I can pretty much tell that that's halfway in there. So I'm just going to come up guess it'd be a good idea for me to first thread my needle. I always like to start with my thread down under my foot. That way it's in control. It's just not out there in the middle of nowhere doing whatever it wants to do. And I am going to start 1/4 of an inch from the edge there. So I'm just going to come over to my template, put my foot down, and come down as far as I need to get it so that it is from the edge and on the line. So when it's going right through the center there, I'll go ahead and put that needle down, bring it back up. Well, where is it? There it is. And I'll put my foot back down and my needle down. Now I've got this pretty much squared in that center there. Get you in here where you can see. So I'm going to stitch around the top till I touch the line again. I'm going to move it over, and I would just stitch from line to line, but I want to make sure that you can see it. So I'm just going to rotate a little bit here. So by doing this, I'm just creating like a scalloped outer edge there. You can see how that's working. I see some of you guys are trying to help me find my ruler stickers, and I know I used them yesterday for 2 different classes, so somewhere they've got to be. So again, I'm looking to see that this is in the middle. Megan, you might need to look over here for my stitching line disc. I think it just fell. Here it is. Nope, that's a puzzle piece. I think it is on the floor. Now, if you need to adjust, like this one's just a little bit off, at the top is where you adjust. So I'm just going to pull this back just a little bit. No one will ever know when you adjust at the top. Now right here, that's a little more than 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to adjust at the top. I'm going to move it back, and I'm going to get my spacing gauge. If you didn't find it, there should be another one laying right by that pink right there. And I'm going to make sure that that's 1/4 of an inch so that I will meet right up with where I was. Thank you. So you can see I would tie my threads and all that. I'm just going to let it knot off right here, and then I'll cut it. But just that easily, we have made a scallop border. And knowing what you know now, okay, you can see that then you could put another design here in the middle we can do something with this same template. A lot of different things can be accomplished. But the thing I want you to realize about this is the reason I did this is because so many people are doing all of the template and the cutting out and all of that. And this gives you a really nice way to go around there. Now, if I wanted to do it so it was smaller, let's say I come to like this 8 right here. All right, I'm going to put this in here, or I could put it there. But this would be easier because I'm following these lines right here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do the similar thing so that you can see what we have. It's going to look a little bit different, obviously, because it's smaller. But you can do what everybody else is doing with them, or you can create your own kind of game here. And that's kind of what I've done. So I'm coming in here, making sure this is lined up, and I can look down here also to see if I've got it where I want it. That's probably even an easier and better way to do it. So we're going to start right here and stitch to there. We're going to move over. While I'm doing this, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Yes would be the answer to that. Can I do this as an offset? And yes, you can. I think you would need to put in the other lines, though, to be able to do that. I'm not sure that there's a actual visual way that you could line something up without having those extra lines in there. I don't know about you, but I'm looking at that top part, looking at the back of a turkey. I think that's what it looks like.
Yes. All right. Random question from D. How many years ago did you make your first quilt?
As in ruler quilted or just my first quilt?
I'm sure either one would be answers they would love to hear.
Well, it's at least 40 years ago for my first quilt. Ruler quilting, I've only been doing this since, and I want to say 2015, if I think it's 7 or 8 years. So I can remember when Stacy at Sew Steady handed me the templates and said, test these out because we're thinking about bringing these into the country. And I didn't know the first thing about them. So it was a matter of playing with it. But as you can see here, this gives us a pretty cool border out here of what we can do. I think what you were meaning by offset would be to do it this way so that it would be up when this was down. And yes, you can do that, but you would need these lines in between here because I wouldn't be very good at eyeballing that part there. So you certainly could do that. But this is an easy way to get a scallop.
It's also really pretty. I think my brain goes to cutting it out and doing template. That would be a really pretty border to do that template.
Well, this would definitely be a perfect way to do template. No question about that. And then, of course, you can do anything you want inside here, whether it's with this template or a different template. So let's just pull out, I'm going to pull out the bloom template and put a design in the center there.
And while you're doing that, Rosemary mentioned that with a small circle in the middle, you could almost make this look like a Dresden plate. If you cut
Yes.
it like in half.
You certainly could. So this is the bloom template here. And so I am going to have a point either way, and it's just a matter of what I want to do with it. So let's just go ahead and do it. In here. And I will tell you, I put some links on the handout. If you got the handout there, I do have them in stock on my website. So this is going to be one of those that I grow. So I'm going to stop at this and go around the opposite. Going to go in this direction. And I recommend when you're doing Temply and you haven't drawn it out or whatever, and you're just doing some of it, if you do it like this and then take a look at it, you might see some spaces that you want to cut out that if you go any farther, you can't cut out. So let me take this out of here so we can see what we've got. So you can see how that is. So there's spaces here that could be cut out, but when we do something else, they're going to get covered up. Those are small, but they do give some real good looks to what we're doing. Now, you know, you can do a whole lot of, I mean, this is pretty just like it is like that. We can also go in here and do the other ones in this place and still be able to cut them out. We could, if we wanted to, even start with our needle right there, which would be about like this, and do something out in this area. Now that means we would have to stop and start a couple of times, but let's just try that to see what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and just simply cut this here. And this is where the drawing comes in, because you can see just having those four is really nice like that. So let's come up here and put our needle in and bring up our thread. And I have to tell you, honestly, I don't know if this is going to look like anything or not, because I've not done it this way. But this is what plain is all about. Oops, I forgot to bring up the thread. Megan, when you come back around, will you plug in my mini iron there?
Try.
Because this was going to look a lot better without these lines. We have felt lost for 2 days because I'm expanding my studio and the construction guys drilled through my internet cable on Wednesday.
Which is why right now I can't pin the link. Cause I've put the handout on a couple times, but I can't pin it. So that's something I usually do from a desktop. So
so that's what I was getting ready to say was there's a couple of things we can't do because we don't have desktops. We're using a hotspot to even do tonight's class. So I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing here. Really fills in that space. So let's see when we press that off of there. I'm going to need that little pressing mat, huh? So let's come over here. And because I use the iron off chalk, I did 16 lines using the 8-point crosshair. The first outer one was at 11.5. And then I'll tell you here in a second what the inside was. It'd be good if I let my iron warm up, but and that chalk in that clover marker was replaced. The one that comes in it is not going to iron off. So just so you know there. So there's what we have. There you go. Really, I think would be a pretty design when you template it, if you do template it. But guess what? I think a lot of these, if you're putting it on a quilt that's going to be laundered, you don't want to template this. You would just want to do that design. And that fills in a 12-inch block, a 12-inch finished block. So the outside was 11.5.
you use the bloom template. Cindy wants to know, is that only available at retailers?
Yes, it's on my site. It's on my website. And this was 8.5. This inside one was at 8.5. So 8.5 and 11.5. And then I used the bloom template. Now you could use any template in there, but that really fills that in nicely. Looks really pretty either way, on point or as a square. So what else can we do with that? Well, I was playing with it on my sketch pad. And I did do it so that, and I'm going to show you how to figure this, but I did it so that it is not complete. So they look like they're kind of flowing around this edge.
Looks like a wreath almost.
Right, to give you that look of a wreath. So how did I do it? Well, when you're doing something like this, you're going to have to do one of those completely full and then see where it overlaps so that you know where, and that's why I have those tapes on my template. So I'm going to turn this over. And Megan, you might want to position this right down on this, straight down maybe if we can.
Okay.
Okay, and now I'm going to use my 8-point crosshair again. And I'm going to draw these as solid lines and then the others as dashed lines, just because it may help us to differentiate when we're lining this up. So again, we're offsetting that. If you weren't available yesterday, we did a class at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and I'm sure it's still on the So Steady site. And it was the Template Tasting Friday is what it's called. And I drew with a lot of different flower-like templates. So you may want to go back and catch that. It's about an hour long. So I'm going to go ahead and tape that in there. And I'm going to put this at 11.5, only because if you were doing something like this wreath, you may want to have this so that you can fill in a 12-inch square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the dash line first. Oops. What happened to my, there it is. And I'm going to draw the whole design. And then I'm going to move over to the next line. And I'm going to draw it from the line to there. Okay, so now what I got to figure out is, how do I keep going with this and know where to start and stop? Because I can't move this way, which seems like it would be the easiest way to do it, but I can't get there because that's where it starts and stops, or starts and stops. So that's why I take this and I've got that tape there. So it's down here and at the bottom here. So bottom here is where we're going. So if I come over here and line it up, I should be able to erase that right there. And then when I stop at this point here and move over, I'm going to go to the bottom there, around, and to the bottom here. Move it again. And at this point, I'm going to have to go one way twice. So I've made a full. No, this is where I went there and back. So that's the twice. And you can see it went right beside my spots that I determined by the bottom of that and the bottom of that. So now I move it over to the next line. I'm going to come to the bottom here and go back and to the bottom there. And you can see I'm just getting right beside those, but I had to determine that up here. And I had to figure out, how am I going to get from one to the other without having to start and stop? Now, I know that may be like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what she's talking about. That's why you can go back and watch these. But I will tell you, it takes a little figuring out, because when I was up here, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to move to the right. How can I do that? I really did. There's no way, because that's where my stop and my start was. So that's why we have to figure out what those spots are, so you'll be able to continue all the way around. Now you can see right here, I am off. Okay, so I don't know for sure. My needle would still be stuck in that spot. It looks like maybe I went too far, which means I'd have to take some out. So I would probably come back, move over. Nope, that wasn't it. I didn't go far enough. Thank goodness, because that means I can still make this. So I'm coming to here and around is to the bottom of that. Bottom, bottom. Now the interesting part is I can't really see where I'm at. So if I miss it by a few, that will be probably not happening in the reality of it, because to keep this placed where you can see it, oops, I went too far. If only getting stitches out were as easy as an eraser. My thread got caught under there. So there we are back at the beginning, and it's finished. So that's how we can work around not doing complete ovals, but getting them so that they look like a wreath. Now, I don't know, Megan, do they want to actually see me stitch this? If you guys want to see me stitch it, let us know, because I would be happy to, or I can move on. Well, I've got that there. Let's just do something else real quick.
You're getting lots of hearts.
They want to see it stitched.
They want to see it stitched.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here, let's see what this looks like, just because. I'm going to take this and go down this direction and back up until it touches this line. It ran over my tape. It's going to run over the tape again. This is pretty cool too. Well, that's pretty cool right there. They should all look like this, but my tape is in the way. Obviously, that's not going to be something we have in there, but that really looks neat too. So let's go ahead and take this off. And we're going to get some fabric here. Do we have another piece, Megan, of fabric?
Yes, over there.
Okay. This?
Yep.
Want to get me a lint roller, please? Now we'll do the same thing as I did when I was drawing regarding when I turn, getting that dash line. Got one more. Now on this one, I believe because that tape was in my way, I will put the thumbtack up through the fabric because I sure don't want to have to stop and deal with tape in the way. And just a little hint, I'm kind of doing this backwards. If I was putting that tack up through the fabric, I would have done that first. And then that way my chalk doesn't get all messed up.
They're saying you missed a line. Did you miss a line?
Looks like it. Right here. All right. So we're going to start on the 11.5. And remember, we're doing the bottom and the bottom of that. It would be easier if we had our ruler stickers for the points, but I'm going to come right here at the bottom of this one and bring that up. We're going to stitch around to the bottom of that one. We're going to move, line this up, and then I will need to decide, am I coming this way? This is longer, so I'm going the shorter distance. That's going to have to be stitched twice. So when you're doing one of, oh, I went a little too far. When you're doing one of these, then you want to make sure, because you're stitching over it, that you're not using a heavy, heavy thread, because it will really make that double stitch too emphasized. So I'm going this way to the bottom and then around. I'm going to come over here, and you can see I've got way too much at that point. So I'm going to go just a smidge more, and that will make this line up the way it's supposed to. that pass where it's supposed to. Move to the next line. And I'm really short there. So that means I don't have enough over here. So I need to go a little bit more. And seriously, 2 stitches will bring us in line where we need to be. And you can see I'm not quite there yet. So let's do just another stitch. There we go. See how that just passes where it's supposed to. This one I went too far on the down there, so it's going to be really obvious. And you're probably wondering, so what would you do? Well, because that's double stitched right there, I would take just these few stitches out, but then I would stitch over that again, just those few. And you can see that when I pulled this, I pulled it off. I was turning around this way, and I pulled it totally off kilter. So in the having that too long, then I made this one too short. I think if I had my ruler stickers, it would be a little easier because they have an arrow on them. But all in all, not too bad. That's where I started or finished or something. There we go. All right. So you probably want to see what I do right here. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to take this and clip those 2 threads because they're stitched a double time.
Patsy says that's what a black Sharpie's for.
Oh, yeah, that would work too. That's a good idea. A black Sharpie. Just to cover those stitches up. I've done it before too. I also have like 30 different colors of Sharpies for that very reason. My eyes are about shot for today. Let's see if I go to the back if I can see it better. Well, it may be a black Sharpie. No, I think I got it. There. So then you can put your template back in or match it up if you want to, but I'm just going to pull my thread up, right up. I just cut it instead of pulled it up. Use the extra lift to get that out of there. And then I'm just going to, because I've got this, I'm just going to stitch a couple of stitches over it. And then back. And I'm going to use my fix button that's going to tie a knot. And then I'm just going to cut that. And there'll be on the back what I need to cut off. And this will get cut off on the front. So it takes care of that end there where I had just kind of separate the stitches. So now, hopefully I've still got this in here. And I'm looking at my pattern. How did I do it? I put it on 7.5, I think. And so I'm on the dashed lines here, and I'm stitching down and around till I touch that again. Move it to the next dash line. Okay, what I'm going to do here is, because that's off, I'm going to pull it so it's on, because we're down here on a thumbtack. I'm going to stitch to the bottom, and then I'm going to bring it back over here. Now on this one, that's more. So I'm going to come to that line and I'm going to pull this in. And it's our last one, so I want to measure it. Obviously, I would bring my threads up, but I'm just going to snip them off here. And I'm going to get that ironing board and press those lines out. Darning mat. Save your drawings, put them in a portfolio or something like that so you can go back and reference what you did. But again, this would be one that makes a beautiful design as it is. But again, you can see there's plenty of opportunity for template with this one. So let's get you over here. And there's what we have. Now, when you have templates that have this shape, remember, you can use that shape without putting it on something else. So I've got room down here, and I'm going to show you how we can do a border. I'm going to have to do a little pressing with my iron here. And this creates a good size design for a border. And you could use, if you have an oval template, you could use that, but this is going to be just fine to use here. I already have a quilt on my suspension system, and that's my fabrics are catching it on the back there. So as we do with circles and whatever, this is going to have one side each time overlapping itself because I can't start and stop in the same spot without having to do a ton of tying off, and I sure don't want to do that. So we're going to go around. And back up to here. I'm going to slide down, keeping that line lined up. And I just go the opposite way each time. That way, the double stitching is here and then down here, and it just goes back and forth. And I'm going to stop there. You could go on and on and on. I'm just going to cut that because what I'm going to do then is I am going to offset this chain by about 3/8 of an inch, maybe more like a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to come over. You can see it's more than 1/4 of an inch there. And we're going to go back the other way.
Tracy wants to know, what if you only did half ovals, like one on the bottom and then one on the top?
Sure, you can do that. It creates a, yeah, you can do that. So since I went double there, I'm going to go double on this side. Come down here. Oops, I went the wrong way. So when I get here, I will just go back this way. Now I'm going to stop here because I'm going to show you one more thing with that last one that's different. But you can see how that creates a pretty little chain effect. And if you wanted to leave these just as one of those, I mean, it would be 1, 1, 1, not overlapped like that. You could also put the feathering in. But you would want to do it after each one of them. So after you did one, you'd be up here. So we pull the acrylic in to touch that stitch. Pull it in to touch the next one. Pull it in to touch the next one. And so each one of these could have that shape there. Now, what you're going to do is adjust again, get it so that it's where it's supposed to be. Do your shape. When you're down here, you can either do the same one, or I would do the one on the opposite side. So I would pull it in that way. So it is, really just adds more texture to your quilting, more interest to your quilting. And that's an easy way to do that. Now, of course, you can always come back and add it, but you're stopping and starting, stopping and starting. Unless, of course, you went like that. But then when you do that, I think it starts looking like eyeballs. So it's totally up to you what you want to do with that. So do we have any questions, Megan?
So you've answered all of them so far.
All right. Well, I'm going to call it a day for today. And as I said, I have this Artisan 66 2.5 by 3 inch oval. All you really have to do is remember the Artisan 66. And this one comes by itself. You can get a set of the templates, the Artisan templates. And this one I do have in stock. So if you're interested in that, you can click on that link on your handout and we'll get you taken care of. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you, as far as I know, next week. Bye now.